Yeah, this looks pretty clean in here, pretty good.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Rustomod. In the last episode, you saw us install our Volkswagen TDI engine into our Jeep Wrangler frame that we're putting a 1950 Willys Wagon body on top of. Now, in the last episode, you saw us basically tack in where our motor was going to sit. That way we could design motor mounts and get everything situated, so that way when we make motor mounts, everything will be in the same place and we won't have to question anything. So then after we got the motor tacked into place with just some sheet metal we had laying around, we would set the body back down on it to make sure the motor was where we wanted it, and then we went ahead and designed motor mounts in CAD. Now, in our CAD system, this is basically what we came up with our motor mounts. Now, the Volkswagen didn't have enough space on the driver's side to be able to make a motor mount because of all the accessories that were on that side. So we initially were going to make motor mounts on the side, but decided that we were going to use the Volkswagen style motor mounts like it was mounted into a Jetta or Passat or whatever car it originally came out of. So that motor has a front motor mount like you can see here, and a rear motor mount like you can see here that we're actually just going to mount to our bell housing. Now, we are going to make the motor mounts fit a little bit better than it would have in the Volkswagen that it came out of. There's a lot more heavy duty steel involved with our mounts, and the motor that we're bolting to the transmission is a lot smaller than the original motor that would have came in front of our transmission. So our transmission actually weighs more than our engine. So as long as we brace everything really well, we shouldn't have any issues, and we'll see as we drive this car if we have to do any adjustments. And finally, we have our transmission mount that we designed here to adapt the 700 R4 Chevy Trans to our Jeep Wrangler frame. Now that we have all of our mounts designed, we can go ahead and start making this stuff. Now, unfortunately, I don't know what happened, but my camera got corrupted and I lost all of the footage of making these mounts, unfortunately. So I filmed these episodes ahead of time, so that way I'm ahead on videos and we can build the Jeep and not rush the build while we're putting out episodes. So I'll show you guys what the motor mounts look like real time, and then we can go back in time and show you guys where we left off. Alright guys, it appears that the video that I had recorded when we did the motor mounts has been corrupted or something like that. So I'm just making a quick video to show you how we attached our motor mounts to the frame, so it kind of makes sense whenever we put our motor back in our Jeep frame. So I'll show you the design of the motor mounts on our CAD file. We initially just used the stock locations of where the Volkswagen motor mount would fit, and that's what we did, and it worked pretty good. When the motor would twerk and run, it actually ended up moving in the motor mounts a little bit, so I'll show you guys what we did to accommodate that. So basically our front motor mount here, we water jetted this plate out and then bolted it where the stock motor mount would go, and then we actually reused some body mounts and some cab mounts from the C10, except for this one. We ended up making that one and using these isolator motor mounts in here, and that's how the front of the motor is mounted. There's not one on this side because we couldn't find a place to mount anything to, and that's really not that big of a deal because our transmission is so large. The motor doesn't really have much weight hanging off the front. The one mount on the front is really just to stabilize the motor from twisting. So on the back, and yes, we have a bunch of new stuff like exhaust and starter and everything like that hooked up because this is in the future, but just wanted to get this out. So on the back, we have two of these isolator mounts bolted to the bell housing on each side here. As you can see, this one is the one that was in here, and we ended up adding this one later on so the motor is stable. So that's basically our rundown on the motor mounts. Really easy. We ended up reusing some mounts on the C10 Escalade frame, welding them to this frame, mounting them there and mounting them there, and then water jetting these mounts and bolting them straight to our bell housing here. So that's how
our motor is mounted into our Jeep frame, and then you can see our water jetted plate here where we just cut out for the transfer case, and it's mounted into our Jeep frame like that.
Okay, now that we're caught up on the motor mounts, I can go back in time and show you guys where we left off in the last episode. So now I will show you guys where we started welding the motor mounts to and mounting the motor into the frame with the motor mounts, so that way we can clearance some things and start tearing down the motor to get our injection pump rebuilt. Alright, so we got these motor mounts welded in. You can see there and there. So we got those welded in, and then we got the gussets underneath. So those should be done. So now we're going to work on the transmission mount. So we're probably going to utilize these holes and then just offset them to the transmission that we're going to use, and that should be it. We are going to have to cut out the skid plate here and probably over here to fit the transfer case we're going to use. So just plasma cut that out, not really a big deal. And then the motor and transmission should be in there for good. We got this piece water jetted, and so that's pretty much our transmission mount. We'll mount that to the crossmember here, and then this mount will mount to the transmission. So that will just bolt right there, and then like I said, we'll trip this out. So this is the transmission mount we came up with. So it's adapting the existing transmission holes to the mount that we have on the 700R4 transmission. So
Exactly, the transfer case.
yeah, so we have to cut the hole for the transfer case clearance to fit the bottom of the transfer case so we can bolt the transmission in for good. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to trim that out with the plasma cutter. So we got that cut out, and then we got a transmission mount in. So now we're going to test fit our engine where the transmission can sit in there completely. So we're gonna pop that in and see how that looks. Alright, so we got our motor on our new motor mounts here. So you can see our cutout for our transfer case there, and then you can see the transmission mount that we made. So now we're going to trim for the front drive shaft to go up there with the front differential. We have to trim this a little bit because it's a little close to the cross member. And then once we do that, we should be good to go. Alright, so our injection pump ended up having to get rebuilt. So we're going to pull the valve cover off, time it with our Volkswagen tech here. So pull this off and then time it, get this sent out to get rebuilt. And then once we have the whole thing together, we can put it back in. It should be good to go. So we're gonna take this apart right now. Yeah, this looks pretty clean in here, pretty good.
Yeah.
No weird oil buildup.
I mean, the lobes look really good.
Yep.
All right, so this is a 1.9 liter turbo diesel Volkswagen motor. It's pretty simple. You got a timing belt with the injection pump and everything. Everything lines up and has pinholes and everything. So you want your cylinder one at TDC with valves closed, so the lobes are sticking up. And then on the back side, we have a slot here. One side's smaller, one side's bigger. The bigger side goes down. You got the slot. Take the tool, and it fits in there like so.
Boom.
So then come around to the front, we've got this, and we slide this in there like that. See a little hole right there? Bring her in there. Ta-da!
Timed.
And we, somebody really, it shouldn't go anywhere, it's locked. The tension.
Oh wow. I thought it like a serpentine
when
built.
you guys are tension, this is a standard for all TDI Volkswagens. There's two little keyway, two little holes in there. You take a tool like this, and you just tighten it, and it'll bring it around. And then you snug this down.
So how tight do you go with it?
So there's a little mark. So you see this little arrow, this little bump right here?
Yeah.
It'll bring it around so it's in the center here. So this one was really tight. So I recommend replacing those.
The belt
Well, at least this
or
tension.
the tension?
Just because how tight it. When they get super tight like that, they don't work properly. Like somebody really overworked that. It'll kind of get stuck inside there. But yeah, this will spin around and line up. I have a little tooth here, right here, and this goes in this hole right here. And that way, when you tighten it, it'll actually not turn the whole thing. It holds it there, so you can tension it. So this is like a, oblong. Yeah, eccentric. There we go. So when you turn it, it goes wider and shallower. Ta-da!
All right, cool. So then we just gotta pull the pump off,
Gotta pull the lines off.
pull the lines off, and send it off.
All right, so we're about to start pulling the injection pump off. We got the lines, all 4 lines off. This one was really tight. So there's 4 bolts, 1 on the back here, and there's 3 on the front with 3 nuts. So all you pretty much gotta do is get the nuts off, counter hold the bolts on the other side, and then there's a 4th one down there like I was saying. So pretty easy. We're gonna go ahead and get it knocked out and show you guys.
All right, we got some of the bolts were a little stripped, so we had to get them out. But now you can remove the pump, and we'll send this off to get rebuilt, and everything's still intact.
VE injection pump.
Yes.
Okay, now that we have our VE injection pump removed, we can send that out to get rebuilt, so that way it's freshened up whenever we get the motor back where it's supposed to be. We can put it on, make sure it runs, and everything should be dialed in with our TDI. So now we're just fitting the body back onto the frame, so we can start on some other things in the next episode. We can start on interior and a bunch of other things while we're waiting to get the injection pump back, so that way when that comes back we can get all the engine side dialed in. So now we can shift gears a little bit on the next episode and work on some other things surrounding the Jeep to finish this build up. So that's basically where we are right now, and you'll have to see what we're going to do next on the next episode. We post Jeep videos every Friday, so make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe so you can be up to date on what we're going to do next. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.